Hauke Ernst. He is driving digital transformation in the space system division in Airbus, Defense and Space, placed in Bremen, Germany. He's focused on the customer interface, and he is currently leading a major flagship project for Airbus in the context of artificial intelligence and cloud. One of them is what we're going to be learning about now, GAIA-X Corporate Program, and is aiming to establish a new data ecosystem for aviation and space based on GAIA-X. So Hauke, the floor is yours. I will unshare my screen, and we are excited to learn about GAIA-X.
Okay, thanks. Can you hear me or not yet?
We hear you.
Okay, perfect. And you also see my slides?
Yes, we do.
Okay, perfect. Can you still see it?
Still.
Okay, thank you very much. So as you see on my background here, I'm more the space guy and not the ocean guy. I apologize for that, but we all know, and we have seen that also in the previous presentation, there's always links between these worlds because there's a lot to see from space in the ocean or in the coastline and so forth. And I think it's super interesting, and there's a lot of overlaps we can talk about. Digital twin is obviously a major topic in our domain as well. I come to that. So the project I'm talking about today is called Corporance. It's called Collaborative Processes and Services for Aeronautics and Space. It's a project that is funded under the umbrella of GAIA-X by the German Ministry of Economy and Climate. It's about 20 million euros, this one. And it's a co-funding scheme between industry and the ministry. So also Airbus has some stakes inside. And the background is that typically we are building spacecrafts, complex spacecrafts, also obviously aircrafts with similar problems of interoperability. And we are not only building those, but we also run missions with them, which deliver data, which could also then be of interest for Earth observation and ocean topics. So I think that's why I think there's strong links between these topics. Here's just an overview of our consortium. We see that we have collected industry, research institutes, SMEs, and startups. So there's Airbus inside, but we also have our competition with OHB, for instance, also incorporated. We have 4 or 5 different DLR institutes and many other actors in our consortium. And we are tackling mainly interoperability topics with our project. As I said, the project is funded under the GAIA-X scheme, so I will come to that link later. But the problems we are facing is, first of all, organizational interoperability. So the landscape we are dealing with is complex. It's not that just one party is building a spacecraft. It's many different actors who need to work together, also with our customers, with ESA, for instance, or the European Space Agency. And a lot of heterogeneous landscape is to be organized to build such kind of space mission. There's also connected to that technical interoperability. So many different tools, many different data models, various standards which could be used. And per se, what we do in the past is to exchange documents. So previous times it was paper documents, which was shipped in containers to the customers. Now we ship PDFs, but it's still documents. So here you see a lot of value to change to a model where we can really work together on structured data, on structured models. And that's why also this whole topic of having a digital twin of a spacecraft comes into the game. And then the third one is that the ecosystem we are dealing in is more or less a closed environment, so that there are always the typical suspects to work with for certain types of equipment and so forth, and it's hard for newcomers to come in, which is also a problem because this is not so helpful to get innovation into our industry, working with startups and open the community to newcomers. That's another problem we are facing. Coming back to this first problem of missing organizational interoperability, there's 3 bullets I've put here on the slide, which are kind of related to that. One is that there's not really a governance framework and standard available to help this organization. There's not so much available on overarching framework agreements and so forth. There's always just a project to be done and that's it. So not so much available for long-running collaboration, data flows and stuff like that. And then we have the problem of long lead times for certain equipments, multiple iterations being needed and so forth. For the second problem with the technical interoperability, as I mentioned, there's a lot of paper processes or PDF-based interfaces still be there, and if they're structured data exchange, then it's basically uploading for some files or manual interfaces to be served. And here we see a lot of potential to work in this kind of GAIA-X or data space environment to make improvements in this area. We also are suffering a lot from inconsistencies and misunderstandings which come from the lack of such kind of interfaces, because the manual transfer of information from one system to another leads to some errors and other effects. Yeah, so let's say regarding the business partnerships, we have heard in the previous presentation already the topic of maybe having a marketplace. So this is something that we also are really looking at and today suffering from the fact that this type of thing is not yet existing. And this is what we want to work on. So I jump to this slide, which is also something that was on the previous presentation, but now it's a little bit bigger to explain a bit more on the principle of GAIA-X. So GAIA-X is really a federated infrastructure. So it's not one cloud that is hosted by somebody where all the data needs to be hosted. It's really a kind of framework stuff that is there to bring together federated computing nodes and data centers and services into one logical ecosystem where data and services can be shared. To do so, there's a lot of things that you need to do. You need to establish a kind of identity and trust framework where you can use your identity that you create once for many different purposes, and to consume data, consume services, and so forth. Having a kind of catalog, so a meta information, which data is available, which services are in place, and where to find them. That is another element. Some data policy and governance and compliance rules is been defined in GAIA-X. And the whole thing is also made to ensure data sovereignty regarding the ownership of the data. So obviously the owner of the valuable information wants to keep in control of their ownership. Sometimes the data is also attached to some monetary value, so that people want to earn money with their data sometimes. And obviously the data is valuable and needs to be protected. And that's why GAIA-X is also a kind of European approach, let's say, to as an answer to the US Cloud Act and the US Patriot Act, where the US government can have access to private information and so forth. And that's why also GAIA-X was founded to create this kind of sovereignty of the data where, for instance, US government cannot access all the stuff, and this kind of cloud infrastructures that are coming up can be really used to commercially work together on data. So that's why in GAIA-X, the attempt is to create data ecosystems and data spaces which are federated and distributed over many different nodes and ensuring interoperability. Coming to this one here, and the Corporans project, as I said, it's the flagship program that is funded for aviation and space. And here we want to define a governance for our industry, a governance to create such kind of data ecosystem. And we also want to develop a technical foundation for this data space and establish a first version of a marketplace where such kind of services and data can be published and consumed. This here is an overview. You see this data space and data ecosystem is in the middle. The key actors in our domain would be first, we have a lot of research institutes. We have the primes, so the OEMs like Airbus and OHB or Thales, who let's say are the prime, typically the prime contractors with the customer and organizing all the subcontractors, which are also part of the ecosystem. So we have the subcontractors, the equipment providers, but now we have also the pure software providers, which provide digital tools, innovative solutions, and so forth. We have the agencies as our customers, and we also have the data consumers. Not to forget, and I understand that in your environment where you talk about the ocean, you're also dealing a lot with Earth observation data of the ocean. Obviously, from the spacecraft, we are delivering such kind of information, and this could also be part of that whole GAIA-X ecosystem. So with this, we can also see that there's even bridges between different data ecosystems where we might have one for kind of building the space product and another one for maybe making sense of that for ocean purposes. So, and that's where I think GAIA-X can bring a lot of value to really mediate this kind of bridges and federated infrastructures. For our project, we are mainly dealing with collaborative engineering, where remote people, remote teams can work together on models, so-called kind of digital twin of the spacecraft. But there's also, as I said, the perspective to also incorporate the data provisioning from the spacecraft into these ecosystems. And here I have two examples of the Iliad Neo mission, where we have imagery from satellites of 30 centimeters resolution. And obviously, a new way to promote this kind of data would also be through GAIA-X ecosystems and data spaces and marketplaces. Okay, coming to the end, I guess my time is already over. Just to mention again what would be the main results of our project. It would be finished by the end of 2024, and we want to have an implemented first version of the ecosystem with some example services being inside. We want to validate that with concrete space pilot missions to show how it works and to demonstrate the value. And we also want to use it as a lighthouse project for further scaling of the model. So that's why I'm very interested in discussion also how we could link this story to for instance, your initiative with the digital twin of the ocean, because there's a lot of links that I would see, and I'm really happy to have opportunity to discuss that. Okay, thanks a lot, and happy to answer questions.